Well, the big thing is most people just don't even know this is a thing yet. Wait, how does this happen, you know?
So if you missed it, YouTube recently made a change that is awesome for, I'm going to say pretty much everyone, but especially for language learners and those interested in languages. So what we're talking about here is a feature that is now part of the platform that allows creators to include multiple soundtracks on a single video. And when we say multiple soundtracks, we're probably talking about multiple language tracks. Now, to me personally, this is actually interesting on a number of levels. Firstly, because it's a big move on the chessboard of what is being called the streaming wars. In the streaming wars, you've got your main players like Netflix, Disney, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, HBO, and a couple of others. And traditionally, YouTube is not associated with those things because there's essentially no barrier to entry for either the creator or the viewer. Unlike all those other platforms, YouTube is free, but it's also created for free by anyone who wants to create. So it's a totally different business model. And until now, there hasn't really been a call for this kind of content to be available in multiple languages. Now, I would only be guessing here, so take this with a grain of salt, but I imagine what happened is that YouTube noticed some of their biggest creators, like MrBeast, start multiple channels that were just foreign language versions of those original channels, and they thought, well, this is an opportunity to even further dominate the space by also offering that Netflix and Amazon and stuff already offer. And if you're a language learner, you might be wondering what the practical difference is, given that the channels that currently have multiple language videos were already offering those videos just on separate channels. Well, I can still see a few differences. For one thing, I'm guessing that YouTube's aim here is to make this more accessible to smaller channels by simplifying the process and putting it on people's radar. So far, I haven't seen a channel smaller than MrBeast's offering multiple languages on the one video. I'm sure there are channels that do it, I just haven't come across them. But given how much easier the tracks being on the one video will make things for the creator, I could now see much smaller channels offering this. So basically, we should soon be seeing more videos across more sizes of channels being offered in more languages. And the other big difference that I can see this making for language learners is that it's easier to switch between soundtracks and therefore hear what was said in the original language, let's say it's English, and then hear what that sounds like in the dubbed language, let's say it's German. Before you could do it, but you would have to have the video open in two different tabs, and we're talking about two different videos on two different channels.
Now it's just like, hey, whether you're in Mexico, you're in Brazil, you're in India, all the dubs are in one place on one video.
And remember, anything that shortcuts your comprehension, so hearing the English first and then hearing the target language, helps you to acquire the language more quickly. Now, it is still very early days on this, but when it starts being adopted more widely, which I'm almost certain it will, we're also going to see some other changes. For example, you may start seeing channels with, say, 10 to 30 million subscribers that you've never heard of before being recommended on your homepage, and you'll soon find out the reason that you've never heard of the channel before is that it's natively in a different language, but the algorithm is now offering it to you because you can now watch it in English. And I'm just going to quickly touch on one more possibility that I see here that is maybe a bit out there, but then I'll finish up on how you can actually utilize this feature for your language learning. One possibility, and I don't think this will happen on any kind of scale, but it's still interesting to think about, is alternative soundtracks. So if you've ever watched like a director's commentary, say on a DVD or Blu-ray, that's just the same movie that would normally play, but with a different soundtrack, right? You can even switch through the soundtracks and say like English, French, German, director's commentary track. That's all that is. You could potentially now have that on YouTube videos. To be honest, I can't really see YouTubers wanting to do this very often for a number of reasons, one of which is that you'd actually get more views by uploading it as a separate video, I think. But I think it's an interesting possibility, especially for really B-roll heavy or entirely B-roll videos, like ones that don't use a camera like I'm doing now. You could use the different language tracks to make, say, the opposing argument in your video, or the same video presented in a different voice or with different music. I think this YouTube that we're used to, where I sit and present one version of the video and it's only in my voice, etc., this will seem quite primitive in 3 or 4 years or 5 years, and it's got nothing to do with just the soundtrack by itself, or it's not only to do with the soundtrack itself, it's also to do with a lot of other things that are becoming increasingly streamlined in this space, so that we could soon have a much more like 5-6 dimensional experience on this platform. But to finish up on how you can use this to learn languages better, for right now, it doesn't really change that much about how you would use the platform. You should still have a separate account for listening to a different language on YouTube, but where previously it didn't matter what language the account was set to, it only mattered what videos you clicked on, it will now matter what language the account is actually set to only when you click on videos that have multiple languages. So if you've got it set to Spanish and you click on a video that has a Spanish soundtrack, even if that video was not originally in Spanish, it will automatically play in Spanish. That's probably going to be considered a good thing by most language learners. However, if you have your normal Spanish learning account set to English and you click on, say, a Mr. Beast video, it will play in English.
Auto plays it in their language when they click on a video, so.
And I've checked that this works. So far, I've not had even a single hiccup. My Spanish learning account, if I have the account set to English and I click on a Mr. Beast video, it will just play in English. But the second that I change the account back over to Spanish, I click on the same video, it plays automatically in Spanish. It will also mean that for 99% of videos, so long as you have that account language set properly to whatever you're interested in, you can tell for sure if the video is actually available in that language just by looking at the title, because the different soundtracks of the videos also get their own titles and I think even their own thumbnails, but I'm not sure about that. So if you see a title that is in Spanish on your Spanish learning account, you are okay to click that video. Even if the video was originally in English, it will have a Spanish soundtrack. That is why it has a Spanish title. So yeah, that's about it. I just thought I would update you guys because I feel like this change kind of snuck under the radar a little bit, or at least for someone like me who doesn't watch a lot of those kind of big viral videos. But let me know if you think that it's going to make any difference to your language learning. Particularly, I'd love to know your thoughts on my sort of slightly more wacky theory of having multiple soundtracks, multiple music tracks, all that kind of thing. If you're new here, I do try to make the best language learning videos on the internet. If you want to see how I'm going with that, you can watch this one right here. Thanks for watching. See ya.